Hello, good morning, David.
Yeah, good morning, Jason, and thank you for inviting me to the call.
Yeah, no problem at all. So, thanks for joining us on what is the latest of our series of podcasts. And I'm really pleased to say that I'm joined this morning by David Horton, Managing Director of Grenke, who one of our trusted leasing partners. Really do appreciate your time. We've done a few of these podcasts of late, but I'm really pleased to say that this is the first of the podcasts that we've done through one of our leasing partners, and I think it's really important. So to give you a little bit of feedback and sort of information around the reason for asking you to join me, mate, is that I work in the commercial print space, and so this will go out to a lot of our commercial print clients, potential customers, and some of our existing clients. And it's the reason for asking for you to join us with this, which obviously, as I say, we're really grateful for you doing, is that we understand and we appreciate that it's sometimes quite a challenge to get some of these deals approved. I work very closely with one of the guys who works for yourself at Grenke, Dave Pritchard. And we've been successful with several deals, but there's also been a couple of deals that we've not been able to quite get over the line. And so really by joining us this morning, we'd like to sort of get some information from yourself. It's going to be your platform, David, but in terms of being able to kind of try to eliminate the risk of going so far down the sales cycle with a particular customer, and just trying to ensure that we can present you with the right information to get a really good sort of understanding as to whether or not a client's going to be suitable for credit. I mean, I would look typically at company's house, company check, and mine. If I'm being brutally honest, there's a bit of a there's a net worth there of that. Perhaps we might be able to get to that. It's not much more than that. So yeah, if I can pass over to you, but the first thing I'd like you to do, if possible, if you can maybe list what or talk us through what are the most common, perhaps the three most common reasons that a company doesn't necessarily get the approval for a credit facility in that particular space.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's difficult to specify three specifics because it depends on who you're looking at. But let me start off by saying that as a leasing company, we're in the business of saying yes, because first and foremost, it costs us money to underwrite, as we call it, a proposal or a lessee, a future lessee. So first of all, we want to say yes. And if we say no, that money that it's cost us to say no, we'll never get back. So clearly, we want to get to the point where we say yes.
Yep.
So what are some of the considerations, or what are the reasons why we would reject a proposal? First of all, we take a complete view. It's a holistic view. It's not just one particular item. But what we would generally start off with is we look at the overall financial performance of the business. How do we do that? We would look at a credit reference agency, the likes of Dun & Bradstreet. There are other companies, Experian, Equifax. And what that does is it gives us a complete picture of the business with assessments from the credit reference agency. You made reference earlier on about using company's house, and that's fine, but it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. The jigsaw puzzle we use consists of 100 pieces. If you use the company's house on its own and in isolation, that's a very small part of that jigsaw puzzle picture. You're not seeing the complete picture. There's nothing wrong with the information. It's just you're not seeing all of the information that's out there and available. And of course, we have to pay for that information. So what are we looking for when we're underwriting a business? So first of all, the financial performance of the business. And what do I mean by that? First of all, what's the worth? What's the value of the business? And what constitutes that? So you made a reference earlier on about the net worth of the business. The net worth of the business is the value of the business. If you add everything together and take away all the outgoings and all the liabilities, that is the net worth of the business. The problem is some people include property as the net worth of the business. Yep. There's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to dig a bit deeper, because actually to keep that business afloat, they need the property. So they're unlikely to sell that business to create the liquidity for the business. So what we're looking for is that business's ability to service its debts. So we're looking for liquidity. We're looking at cash in the bank. So they might have a high net worth, because they've got £1 million property, but actually might only have 50 grand in the bank. So that would be a challenge for us. And at the beginning of a conversation, you made reference to a lifestyle type business. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with a business having the label of a lifestyle business. And I absolutely get that. They want to work hard and they want to enjoy the fruits of all their labor. The problem we have as an underwriter or as a leasing company that wants to underwrite and say yes to a proposal is that if that value of the business, the worth of that business has been affected by that money being taken out of the business, then clearly that business has a lower worth, a lower value, and it makes it more difficult to say yes, particularly when the asset is of a higher value. So if we talk about production printers, you know, the size of a room, that could be something in the value of 150,000 quid. That's a difficult one to say yes when there's maybe 50,000 quid in the bank. The other problem you've got is that we have to also look at the asset value. If the deal went bad, what are we going to do with that asset? Now, yes, we can send a truck to go and collect it and resell that asset, or we might ask the original reseller to help us with the resale of it. The problem is a big piece of equipment needs a big lorry and a crane to go and get it and retrieve it. So these are all the considerations. So it's not just about the financials, it's the complete pictures I referred to. The other thing is adverse information. So here's a good one, CCJs.
Right.
You know, so a CCJ is generally regarded as a pretty negative situation. Why do we look at it negatively? It's not the actual amount itself, it's other aspects of the CCJ. For example, for something to get to a CCJ where it's served upon on a customer, it means it's gone through a necessary set of legal steps and there's been no mutual agreement to settle that or come to an amicable settlement between the claimant and the customer. So we sort of take a negative view. Hang on a second, if the CCJ's for 50,000 quid and the asset's 50,000 quid that's being proposed, hang on a second, that's very similar to what we're being asked to underwrite. That makes us uncomfortable, particularly if the credit of the customer is also borderline. So that's adverse information, poor performing financial information, and a new startup. Clearly, what we're also looking is that ability for a business to operate through, do its job day to day. It's difficult for us to measure that if they've only been trading for 6, 9 or 12 months. So what we're looking for is usually if we've got 2 to 3 years of positive financial information, that's going to help us to say yes.
Well, that actually kind of leads on to something else. So with the example that you just referred to of a new startup business, would any support information such as a business plan, some finances that are in place that they're actually invested themselves, and therefore potentially as a homeowner, if the client was to give a guarantee, these type of things that you may potentially ask for, and then in a business that maybe has been around for 2 or 3 years, they've got that trading history, but like you referred to, they've been running it as a bit of a lifestyle business. What other information can we ask for, as in the reseller of the equipment? What other information could we ask for and supporting documentation that we can get from a client that may help us to help you to do what you've said at the outset, is to give the ability to say yes, and then obviously everybody's in a stronger position?
Well, first of all, what I would suggest to you is, rather than me giving you a broad brushstroke approach to this, what I would always recommend is timing is always of the essence here. As soon as you know you have a reasonable opportunity with a customer, is to send the proposal to us. So that's the company registration number, the value of the proposal, what the equipment's for, and what it's hoping to achieve for that customer, i.e., is it enhancing, they've just won a large contract, etc., etc. If you then send that proposal to us, what our underwriters will do is say, okay, so the proposal is, let's say, for 100,000 quid. We've analysed the financial performance, but given that the business is only 3 years old, what we'd like to see is the most up-to-date set of management accounts, Is there a director's guarantee available? And what they'll do is they'll specifically ask you for 2 or 3 additional pieces of information. So rather than going piecemeal to the customer, oh, can we have this? And then you send it. And then you say, oh, I'll tell you what, might be a good idea to give us this for Grenke. If you send us the proposal first, we can then put all the questions together and we can then send an email back to you to say, okay, we think there's potential merit in this proposal. What we'd like to see is information A, B, and C. If you can get that, we're happy to consider further.
That's brilliant. And then actually, one of the things that I do really like with working with yourselves at Grenke, and in particular, like I mentioned earlier, the Dave Pritchard is the chap that I deal with sort of on a day-to-day as well. But he's also happy, and I know this will come down from yourself, David, and from the top, as it were, more than happy to pick the phone up, have a conversation with the client, to ask some questions, to meet them if necessary. Because again, when we're talking about somebody's financials, sometimes it can be something that they might feel a bit more comfortable talking with you as the lender, as opposed to me as the salesperson, for want of a better term. And so that's something that works very, very well. Now just moving on to if we find ourselves in a situation whereby you've had to say no because the financials just don't stack up based on the way that they're accounted. What could that particular client do to improve or give them a better chance of maybe then reevaluating, readdressing the situation in, say, I don't know, 12 months time or whatever? So
that's an interesting question. It's a challenging one, that it's that sort of how long is a piece of string question, really. But let's make up a supposed sort of story on this. So we get a customer and it's for a large production piece of equipment, £100,000. Now on a 5-year agreement, that we're looking at that customer paying something like £6,500, £6,600 per quarter over a 5-year period on that. What we might look at and say, well, the problem is with that, is the liquidity, their ability to service that is difficult, because what we're not seeing that revenue coming through into the business in terms of the accounts or the credit reference agency. So we might have already asked for a bank statement. And we've seen the bank statement and we're still saying no. So all I can say is if we go back to that lifestyle story right at the very beginning, and again, I'm not pointing fingers. If somebody wants to drive a Maserati, if somebody wants to drive their Lamborghini, fantastic, good luck to them. The problem is that we can only go on the information that's available to us. So rather than driving the Lamborghini, they might want to drive the Maserati and then have more cash going through the business, because if they have more cash in the business, we're seeing greater liquidity and the greater ability for that customer to service that debt. Now, I'm using a very hypothetical situation here, but I think what it does is it paints a picture that if there's more cash going through the business, it makes it easier to say yes than to say no.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I appreciate as well that this is very much a generic conversation, because there's no such thing as a one size fits all in this at all. Now, if I can just ask you a couple of the questions that I'm asked, and it would help with the way that I can then respond to my clients. So when we get to the stage where you have said yes, we've raised the documentation, that's been sent to the client for review. A couple of the questions that do come up quite regularly. First one being, in fact, I'll ask you the two, and you can respond to the both of them. First one is, often we're asked the question, what is the equipment protection charge? And then secondly, what is the documentation charge for? Could you just explain what those two charges are?
Of course I can. Yeah. So let's take equipment protection. Equipment protection is our way of describing insurance. So on our agreement, it's a hire agreement. We are the owner of the asset throughout the entirety of the lease. And we have a duty of obligation to our shareholders and us as a business to make sure that our asset is protected via insurance. And that's what it is, simply. So there's two ways of doing this. The customer can use their own insurance to protect that asset, and all we ask is proof of that insurance. We don't want to charge them twice. And if they don't want to use their own insurance, we will use our equipment protection for that asset.
Excellent.
Okay. Second question is the documentation fee charge. We do charge, it's £140. To my knowledge, it's the lowest in the industry in the UK. Why do we charge it? Because there is an inherent cost to underwrite and prepare the documentation ready for signature for the customer. So there's the proposal, there's the preparation of documentation, the underwriting, and then when the documentation is returned to us, there's the processing of all of that documentation as well.
Yeah, and there's obviously a cost associated with that. And just to confirm, that is a one-off cost. It's not a cost that's a recurring cost for the duration of the contract. It's a one-off
No.
upfront cost.
No, so there's what's called an anniversary cost. I know some companies invoke not only a documentation fee, but an anniversary cost, which is a cost that's charged on the anniversary of the agreement going live. But we don't charge that.
No, that's interesting as well, and that's a good point that you make, because obviously there is a charge. Somebody has to create the invoices, whether that be through a piece of software or whether that be through somebody manually doing that, and send a documentation. So there's administration that's included. So I think that one-off upfront cost of £140, like you say, that is about the best that there is in the business, mate.
What I would also recommend as well is that we also ask our customers, once they are a customer of ours, is to log on to our customer portal, and because that will give them access to all of their invoices, whether that be for the one-off documentation fee or the ongoing rental and VAT schedules. If they log on once the agreement is live, they're given an access code and they can pull off that information for their own internal accounts.
That's great. Yep, that's a really important thing as well. And again, so I use the portal with some of my proposals and stuff, and it's a very, very easy to use system and very, very self-explanatory. So that's a good point you make as well. Without wanting to, I mean, clearly we could discuss things around this all day, and go into so much detail. However, I think, and just listening, I've done this job for 25 years, and just listening to you speaking this morning it's a bit more than layman's terms, but for the explanations that you've given have been so succinct. It's helped me, that having done this for so long, I now even have a better idea as to what I should be asking for up front, and the relationship that, as I said at the start, that we have with yourselves at Grenke, we couldn't sort of speak highly enough of that. So really looking forward to doing lots more business with you guys for this year. As you know, we've got one which is going in this month, so hopefully get that one closed down relatively quickly. And David's working on various other proposals for me at the minute as well. So
excellent.
Really appreciate your time. If there's anything else that you want to add before we go, then feel free.
No, just what I'd like to do, just to sum up very briefly, to say is it's all about information. The more complete a picture you can provide to us, the easier it makes for us to say yes. And also, and I don't want it's basics, it's company registration number, it's the correct company name, it's the value, what is the description of the equipment, what's the equipment for, has the customer won a contract, how big is that contract? If you're saying to us, well, actually they're going to double their turnover as a result of this contract, and this contract is a signed contract for the next 5 years, oh, and by the way, the lease is for another 5 years. Well, hang on a second. All of a sudden, we've now got a completely different picture. So it's all about the sharing of accurate information.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true as well. So really appreciate it. It's a good way to kind of summarize and end things there. So listen, once again, really do appreciate your time this morning.
Pleasure.
I know that you're a busy man, and so really grateful for you doing this. And as I say, I don't think this is something which people have sort of done until now. And so hopefully the viewers and the listeners will have a look at this, and they'll give them a little bit more certainty as to what they should be doing with their own accounting.
Great, Jason. Thank you so much for inviting us. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. You take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.